Chapter 21. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Demon Slayer Corps isn't exactly a secret, but getting to their headquarters is a hassle. Like going to the Swordsmith village, you need to be guided by hidden members and eagles, that is, unless you're somebody special. Bai Lan definitely wasn't in that group. Apparently, they don't hide the Demon Slayer pillars from the Demon Slayer headquarters. Even though the guides exchanged words several times, Bai Lan wasn't blindfolded. He was taken straight to headquarters. It took half a day to get there. News of Bai Lan's arrival must have reached the Demon Slayer Corps ahead of him because Ubuyashiki Yoshiya and Himejima Kumei were already waiting in the spacious courtyard. Bai Lan's appearance drew everyone's attention at once. "Welcome to the Demon Slayer headquarters, Bai Lan," Ubuyashiki Yoshiya said gently from his seated position. "I'm Himejima Kumei. It's an honor to meet you, Mr. Bai Lan," Kumei followed. "I'm Kochu Kane. I look forward to working with you, Mr. Bai Lan." Kane also introduced herself. Shinazugawa Sanemi. Sanemi's attitude was comparatively blunt, not because he had a problem with Bai Lan, but because that was just his personality. "Bai Lan." "Likewise." Bai Lan nodded slightly, offering a brief introduction. "So, what exactly did you want me for, Ubuyashiki Yoshiya?" After introducing himself, Bai Lan cut to the chase, looking at Ubuyashiki Yoshiya with a casual air. Even though he was a member of the Demon Slayer Corps, Bai Lan didn't consider himself anyone's subordinate. He found Ubuyashiki Yoshiya's instincts to be impressive and admired the guy's character. After all, he was ruthless enough to use himself as bait, triggering an explosion to try and kill Muzan, creating an opportunity for the Demon Slayer Corps. But Bai Lan didn't see himself as his subordinate. In Bai Lan's mind, his relationship with Ubuyashiki Yoshiya was more like a cooperative arrangement, a trust. The Demon Slayer Corps provided weapons, food, and lodging, freeing him from those concerns while he hunted demons for their mutual benefit. Hearing Bai Lan's tone, none of them reacted. Even Sanemi, who was now a pillar, had been far ruder than Bai Lan during his Hashira meetings. He still treated Ubuyashiki Yoshiya with the utmost respect. The three of them believed that once Bai Lan understood everything about the master, he would become just like them. However, they were wrong. Bai Lan wouldn't end up in the same boat. "We invited you here for two reasons. First, to meet Himejima and the others, get acquainted, and discuss your pillar title. Second, to officially inform you about the benefits afforded to pillars in the Demon Slayer Corps," Ubuyashiki Yoshiya explained gently, unbothered by Bai Lan's attitude. "That's it?" Bai Lan raised an eyebrow, sounding a bit speechless. He was summoned here just for this? He must have nothing else to do. "What do you think?" Ubuyashiki Yoshiya smiled slightly, still unfazed, and asked in a gentle tone. "The pillar title?" Bai Lan touched his chin, a thoughtful look on his face. Ubuyashiki Yoshiya, Himejima Kumei, and the others didn't interrupt, quietly awaiting Bai Lan's answer. "Then call me the Sun Pillar." After a moment, Bai Lan offered his response. Himejima Kumei and the others remained silent, but Ubuyashiki Yoshiya was momentarily stunned. After recovering, Ubuyashiki Yoshiya's eyes twitched slightly. "Bai Lan, could you explain why you chose Sun Pillar?" Ubuyashiki Yoshiya asked, his eyes full of anticipation. Bai Lan immediately noticed the anticipation in Ubuyashiki Yoshiya's eyes. Kochu Kane and Shinazugawa Sanemi also picked up on it, both a little surprised. It was the first time they'd seen the master display such an expression. Bai Lan smiled slightly, understanding Ubuyashiki Yoshiya's reaction. Even though information about the sun-breathing technique had been suppressed, the Ubuyashiki clan still knew about it. Otherwise, Ubuyashiki Yoshiya wouldn't have reacted this way to the word Sun Pillar. With that thought, Bai Lan smiled slightly. "You guessed it." Hearing the answer he sought, Ubuyashiki Yoshiya's eyes lit up, and his usually steady breathing quickened. The sun-breathing technique was the original technique that drove Muzan to despair 4 centuries ago. It was lost after the original user disappeared. Yet, unexpectedly, it was inherited by Bai Lan. Although Ubuyashiki Yoshiya was curious about how Bai Lan, who had recently been trained by the former water pillar, could understand the sun-breathing technique, he didn't press it. Everyone had secrets, and he wouldn't pry as long as it benefited the Demon Slayer Corps, and Bai Lan's situation was clearly beneficial. The original user of the sun-breathing technique nearly killed Muzan. Now that Bai Lan had inherited it, did this mean the demon Slayer Core could defeat Muzan in this generation and finally end the era of demons eating people? Taking a deep breath, Ubuyashiki Yoshiya opened his eyes again. Though it may seem presumptuous, I'd like to ask Bai Lan to agree to my request, Ubuyashiki Yoshiya said in a solemn tone, looking at Bai Lan. A request? What is it? Bai Lan asked, puzzled. Bai Lan, please spar with Himejima, Byakuren, Himejima Kumiai, Kochukane, and Shinazugawa Sanemi were all stunned by Ubuyashiki Yoshiya's words. Master? Himejima Kumiai looked at Ubuyashiki Yoshiya, confused. Ubuyashiki Yoshiya didn't respond, just looked at Bai Lan quietly, frowning slightly for a moment. Bai Lan nodded slowly. He didn't know what Ubuyashiki Yoshiya was thinking, but Bai Lan was definitely interested in fighting Himejima Kumiai, because Himejima Kumiai's current strength was undoubtedly among the best in the Demon Slayer Corps, and he could definitely take on the Upper Moon 3 single-handedly. Fighting him would help Bai Lan gauge his own strength. Thank you, Bai Lan. Chapter 22. You are listening at novelfull.audio. To put it simply, gaining spatial awareness and a connection to the world has seriously boosted Bai Lan's strength. Bai Lan was well aware of the 4th Hokage's abilities. In fact, Bai Lan's current situation mirrors that of the 4th Hokage, Namake's Minato. This combination gives him a similar ability to Minato's Flying Thunder God technique within a certain range. Namake's Minato used this technique to bring an end to the Third Ninja War. Bai Lan now possesses this ability too. While he hasn't completely mastered it yet, given his natural talent, he'll quickly grasp the essentials. However, he's holding back this power for now. He wants to test his raw combat skills against Xing Ming from Beiming Island before relying on spatial perception to finish the fight. Beiming Island's Xing Ming attended the Zhuha meeting weaponless, but his weapons were delivered to the Demon Slayer headquarters. Once Xing Ming's weapons arrived, the battle began. No offense, Mr. Bai Lan, Xing Ming said, clasping his hands. Then, he swung his heavy hammer and battle axe. Bai Lan drew his sun blade. Seeing the Nichiren sword, Ubuyashiki Yoshiya's eyes lit up. That's right, it's the same color as the founder of Sun Breathing, he murmured to himself. The chances of ending Muzan in this generation are looking good. Immortal River, who do you think is stronger, Mr. Xing Ming or Mr. Bai Lan? Butterfly Kane asked Sanemi Shinazugawa, without turning her head, her eyes fixed on Bai Lan and Xing Ming. I don't know, but that guy gives me a seriously dangerous vibe, Sanemi replied, frowning. His instincts are sharp, and he has a strong sense of danger. From the moment he first saw Bai Lan, he felt an intense threat. He felt the same thing from Xing Ming, so he couldn't say who was stronger. Ubuyashiki Yoshiya overheard their conversation. As an outsider, he couldn't offer an answer. But he definitely hoped Bai Lan would win. The stronger Bai Lan became, the better. Not that he underestimated Xing Ming, but he was placing his hopes of defeating Muzan Kibutsuji on Bai Lan. If Bai Lan was stronger, he'd lead the charge against Muzan in the future. Ubuyashiki Yoshiya knew how devastating sun breathing was to demons. According to his family's records, it was the only breathing technique that could truly corner Muzan, suppressing demons completely. No other breathing style even came close. If Bai Lan, with his mastery of sun breathing, was strong, he would have a much better chance of killing Muzan than anyone else. Naturally, he wanted Bai Lan to become as powerful as possible. Meanwhile, the two fighters finally clashed. The massive hammer hurtled towards Bai Lan with incredible force. It was surprisingly fast, appearing in front of him in an instant. Even Sanemi would find that kind of speed difficult to handle. But Bai Lan seemed completely unconcerned. As the hammer fell, he dodged it with ease, as if by pure chance. However, the three Hashira present knew better, including Xing Ming himself. Their eyes widened in disbelief. They knew it wasn't luck. Bai Lan had completely foreseen Xing Ming's attack. He had predicted it perfectly and dodged it effortlessly. Bai Lan's predictive ability was so refined, they almost missed it. Bai Lan himself was fully aware of what was happening. This was the first time he'd used transparency since the beginning. He hadn't even used it in his recent battle with Rengoku. This skill allowed him to see the changes in Xing Ming's body, anticipating his attacks and routines, and dodging them with ease. It was incredibly practical. allowing him to see through the enemy's physical state, analyze their movements, and anticipate their every move. After dodging Xing Ming's attack, Bai Lan instantly appeared in front of him and slashed down with his blade. But he wasn't using his spatial movement ability here. This was just Bai Lan's raw speed. His other ability is a near-instantaneous spatial movement technique that leaves no trace. By the time you notice him, he's already right next to you. The speed he's exhibiting can be seen by the enemy as faint trails of movement. Although Bai Lan appeared in front of Xing Ming in a flash, Xing Ming's heightened hearing and instincts were already on high alert. He raised his battle axe, blocking Bai Lan's attack. Despite having his first attack blocked, Bai Lan didn't stop. His sun blade turned into a blur, unleashing a furious barrage. What power! Is this really what a newcomer who's only been wielding a sword for 2 months is capable of? The sheer force of the assault left Xing Ming struggling to defend himself. He was starting to feel genuinely worried. Chapter 23. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Even though he tried to resist, Gyomei Himejima was still being pushed back, his feet carving shallow grooves in the ground. Kane Kocho and Sanemi Shinazugawa, watching from the sidelines, were taken aback. They understood what was happening. Byakuren's power was overwhelming Himejima, leaving him unable to effectively defend, let alone counterattack. For a moment, a thought crossed their minds. Was Byakuren really stronger than Mr. Himejima? Kagaya Ubuyashiki, lacking the understanding of a trained fighter, didn't grasp the nuances, but the sight before him filled him with hope. After withstanding the relentless barrage for what felt like an eternity, Himejima finally found an opening, broke free, and leaped back to create some distance. Byakuren didn't pursue, remaining where he was, his gaze fixed on Himejima's hands. They were shaking uncontrollably from the force of Byakuren's earlier assault. I have the edge in raw strength, but speed is still an unknown, Byakuren thought. Same goes for combat skills and experience. The exchange had revealed the difference in brute force, but speed remained unclear. Byakuren's initial onslaught had caught Himejima off guard, causing a delayed reaction that allowed Byakuren to maintain the pressure. As for combat skills and experience, it was too early to say for sure, though Himejima's were clearly formidable. The fact that he'd managed to escape such a disadvantageous position spoke volumes about his tactical abilities. That was the only thing Byakuren couldn't assess. That's insane. Hard to believe you've only been wielding a sword for 2 months, Byakuren. Himejima said, his milky eyes fixed on Byakuren, a look of genuine shock on his face. Himejima, a master of stone breathing and a man of extraordinary talent, was arguably the most powerful member of the Demon Slayer Corps. Yet, Byakuren had easily overwhelmed him, leaving him struggling to even defend himself. Byakuren simply smiled at the praise. In a flash, he disappeared. Himejima, startled, immediately went on the offensive. He wouldn't be caught off guard like before. When Byakuren's unexpected moves had created an opening, the instant Byakuren vanished, Himejima swung his weighted flail, striking a point in mid-air. That was exactly where Byakuren reappeared. This illustrated the drawback of his movement technique compared to teleportation. Physical movement allows opponents to anticipate your position. Even Himejima, despite his blindness, could use his other senses to detect the subtle shifts in air pressure and other environmental changes caused by Byakuren's movements. If Byakuren could teleport, he could appear right next to Himejima instantaneously, giving him no time to react, like the 4th Hokage or the 4th Raikage. Even if the 4th Raikage was incredibly fast, Minato still couldn't react to the Flying Thunder God technique, but Byakuren wasn't ready to resort to that tactic. Yet, he wouldn't use it until he was ready to end the match. Instead of dodging Himejima's powerful attack, Byakuren swung his Nichiren blade. Bang! A muffled crash echoed through the training ground. To the astonishment of Kagaya Ubuyashiki and the others, Byakuren's sword had deflected Himejima's iron flail. The redirected flail hurtled back toward Himejima with alarming speed. Even though he had predicted this outcome, Himejima was still caught off guard. Having recognized Byakuren's superior strength, Himejima abandoned the idea of a head-on confrontation, instead focusing on using his refined combat skills and extensive experience to his advantage. Sensing the chain whipping toward him, Himejima didn't panic. He smoothly pulled on it, deflecting the force, while simultaneously swinging his axe behind Byakuren in a wide arc. However, Byakuran easily blocked this attack. Himejima realized his suspicion was correct. Byakuran possessed the ability to anticipate his moves with uncanny accuracy. He coveted that ability. If he had it, his combat effectiveness would increase significantly, but he had no time to dwell on it. Byakuran had seized the opportunity to close the distance. Himejima responded by unleashing another flurry of attacks with his chain. The battle raged on, growing increasingly intense. The clashing of steel reverberated through the bamboo forest, a deafening symphony of destruction. Afterimages blurred and sparks flew. Outside the immediate combat zone, Kagaya Ubuyashiki watched with a sense of helplessness. He couldn't even follow the action, the frustration of being a mere observer, if only he could train. Sadly, his cursed body couldn't withstand the rigors of physical exertion, leaving him perpetually weak. Kane Kocho and Sanemi Shinazugawa, on the other hand, watched with rapt attention. They had both sparred with Himejima before, but always reached a limit. Himejima was simply too strong. Their spars were more like training sessions where Himejima offered guidance and tips. This was the first time they'd witnessed him in such a full-fledged battle, and what a battle it was. They were learning a great deal, insights that would surely improve their own skills, but the fight was brief, ending abruptly within minutes. Kane Kocho and Sanemi Shinazugawa stared in disbelief at the scene. Byakuran, with a knife to Himejima's neck. What had just happened? Chapter 24. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After a quick warm-up, Bai Lan and Bei Mingyu Xingming jumped right into a fight. Within a minute, they were going at it full force. Neither one used their breathing techniques, though. Those are like last resort moves for taking down demons, and using them means you're in for a life-or-death battle. One wrong move, and you could be done for. So, they stuck to regular fighting skills. Bai Lan didn't pull out his sun breath combo, and Mingyu Xingming kept his rock breath technique for actual demon slaying. Even so, this fight was more intense than Bai Lan's previous spar with Lin Takizuo. After going a few rounds with Xingming, Bai Lan realized his own fighting skills needed work. Sure, his transparent world ability let him predict Xingming's moves and get the first strike. In the original story, Mingyu Xingming figured out the whole transparent world thing while fighting Haishimo and came up with a counter in no time. He even unlocked it himself to get stronger, but against Bai Lan, that didn't happen. The transparent world is something you earn through hard work and pushing yourself to the limit. Even though their fight was intense, both Bai Lan and Xingming knew it was just a friendly competition. Xingming hadn't faced any real life-or-death situations yet, so unlocking the transparent world was a no-go. Still, he managed to adapt and keep Bai Lan from landing those quick, decisive blows, which made the transparent world less effective. That's the advantage of raw skill and experience. After a minute, Bai Lan knew his raw power was on par with Xingming's, no question. But when it came to actual fighting skills and experience, Xingming had him beat. So, Bai Lan kept the fight going, soaking up Xingming's techniques and building his own experience. Rentaki Sakanji called Byakuran a natural-born fighter for a reason. In just a few minutes, Bai Lan picked up on all of Xingming's moves and made them his own. Once he'd learned everything he could from Xingming, the scene Butterfly Kane and Immortal Kawa Saniya witnessed unfolded. Bai Lan ended the fight with a bang, using Juchi Tianya to suddenly appear behind Xingming and put a blade to his neck. Xingming didn't even see it coming. 1 second he was fighting, the next he felt the cold steel against his skin. His hammer and axe clattered to the ground, shaking the earth. A wry smile touched his lips. So, that's your real strength? Mingyu Xingming said, sounding a mix of confused and disappointed. If Bai Lan had used that speed from the start, he wouldn't have stood a chance. He would have been taken out in an instant. The fact that he couldn't beat a 12-year-old kid stung, even for a guy as easygoing as him. Yeah, my speed is a bit of a special thing. I only use it when my life is on the line, not for practice, Bai Lan said with a smile, sheathing her sword. That's awesome. Wei Mingyu perked up instantly, his disappointment gone. He was happy. The stronger Bai Lan was, the better it was for their Demon Slayer Corps, and the better their chances of taking down Muzan Kibutsuji. Bai Lan smiled faintly, then looked at Butterfly Kane and Immortal Kawa Saniya, and called out, you two want to go around with me? That everyone has their own unique fighting style, and fighting different people helps Bai Lan get stronger. Having learned a lot from Xingming, he wanted to see what he could pick up from Kane and Saniya. After all, they were both Hashira-level demon slayers. Maybe they weren't on Xingming's level, but they still had something to offer. Huh? Us? Butterfly Kane, who had been wondering why the fight ended, pointed at herself, looking surprised. I'm in. Sania Immortal River answered immediately, and so, Sania Immortal River got his butt kicked by Byakuran, and Butterfly Kane got in on the action too, but even though they were getting pummeled, they were smiling. It made sense, Bai Lan was learning from them, and they were learning from him. Bai Lan had just sparred with Bei Mingyu Xingming, and whose combat skills had been strengthened like never before, fought against the two of them. The benefits to the two of them were self-evident. They both got a lot out of fighting Bai Lan. After the sparring session, Bai Lan said goodbye and got ready to leave. Ubuyashiki Yoshiya didn't try to stop him. By now, Ubuyashiki knew what was up. Once they had a lead on Muzan, he wanted Bai Lan to lead the charge in taking him down. Little brother Bai Lan, come visit the Butterfly Mansion sometime. Just have the crow guide you over whenever you want. Butterfly Kane called out from the gate, waving goodbye to Bai Lan as she walked away. Sure, I'll swing by when I have time, Bai Lan said, waving without turning around. Chapter 25. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Bai Lan didn't bother with Butterfly Kane, though she did start visiting Butterfly House often later, but that was after a certain incident played out like it was supposed to. Right now, though, Bai Lan wasn't even thinking about Butterfly House. Her only focus was hunting demons and getting stronger. Leaving Demon Slayer headquarters, Bai Lan once again set out to hunt, guided by her Kasugai crow on new missions. She had a plan when it came to dealing with demons, even if Bai Lan got strong enough to take down Muzan, she wouldn't do it. Having traveled through time with the intention of becoming powerful, she needed to keep growing. This world was too small to contain her potential. Bai Lan knew she couldn't stay here forever. To keep evolving, she absolutely needed to find a way to other worlds. The system, however, was stubbornly silent on the subject of time travel, leaving Bai Lan to figure it out herself. She wondered how she'd even gotten herself into this world in the first place. Complaining aside, Bai Lan didn't dwell on it. If the system wasn't going to hand her a time travel function, she'd just have to find a way to understand it herself. She'd find a demon with spatial abilities and pick its brain. She was sure she could figure it out. Once Bai Lan unlocked the ability to travel through space, she'd need to keep honing it until it was strong enough to let her hop between worlds safely. Even though she hadn't acquired this ability yet, Bai Lan was pretty sure that boosting it to a level that would allow world travel would require a multiplier of at least 10,000. Maybe 100,000, maybe even 1,000,000, and that meant she needed demons to get the comprehension points she needed. Therefore, even if Bai Lan became powerful enough to defeat Muzan in the future, she wouldn't act until she'd achieved her goal. Otherwise, where would she get comprehension points without killing demons? Start killing innocent people. Bai Lan wouldn't feel any guilt killing people in this country, but she wouldn't do it. Again, aside from a few people in this world and the Demon Slayer Corps, Bai Lan couldn't care less how many people died. She was just worried she'd develop some serious psychological issues if she killed too many people. Bai Lan wasn't sure if killing that many people in this country would turn her bloodthirsty. She wanted to become stronger, but she wasn't willing to let external forces change who she was. Bai Lan would only resort to that if absolutely necessary. Besides, Bai Lan already had a target skill. She didn't know why this ability had appeared after her perception skill had been amplified 100-fold, but she wasn't going to question it. It was clearly a skill related to spatial travel. Once she had 10,000 comprehension points, Bai Lan would see if she could get the ability she wanted by enhancing the skill. If it didn't work, and the skill didn't develop in the direction she wanted, then Bai Lan would just keep searching for demons with spatial abilities. In this era, many places were still underdeveloped. Bai Lan ran along the country roads, heading toward her next destination. A day passed, and Bai Lan arrived at a new town. As soon as she arrived, Bai Lan used her spatial perception to locate the demon. Developing that perception ability had been a great move. Thanks to her ability to sense space, Bai Lan instantly pinpointed the demon's location in a small town. After finding the demon, Bai Lan had an idea and teleported herself there. In a cellar, Bai Lan's target was sleeping. Bai Lan's sudden appearance brought a human presence into the cellar, instantly waking the demon. In the darkness, two scarlet eyes gleamed, glaring at Bai Lan. Bai Lan ignored the demon, drew her sun-breathing katana, and appeared in front of it in a flash, slashing directly at its body. A shrill scream echoed in the cellar. disgusting blood splattered everywhere, and the injured demon screamed and writhed on the ground. The power of sun breathing was devastating to the demon, constantly burning it, rendering its regeneration ability virtually useless. However, even if it was ineffective, the regeneration was still happening. Bai Lan seized the opportunity and immediately used the system's comprehension amplification ability to start understanding the demon's regeneration. Ding! 100-fold increase in comprehension was successful. Ding! Congratulations to the host for gaining the ability to regenerate flesh and blood. Instantly, a massive change occurred within Bai Lan's body. She quickly finished off the demon with a single strike, then closed her eyes to experience the increase in her understanding. Soon, Bai Lan understood the changes, the abilities she acquired. The name of the skill Bai Lan acquired said it all: a bridge between life and death, flesh and bone, meant that as long as her entire body wasn't destroyed, even if her heart was pierced, Bai Lan could regenerate and survive, even her limbs. Even after being severed, she could regenerate them by consuming stamina. It was a terrifyingly powerful recovery ability. What's more, Bai Lan's blood now had a healing effect, capable of mending the wounds of others. This is insane. Was that really just a 100-fold boost? Bai Lan was amazed at how powerful her new abilities were. Compared to the abilities she gained from the previous 100-fold boosts, this one was on another level. However, Bai Lan was only surprised for a moment before shaking it off. So what? Being strong wasn't a bad thing, right? In the end, she was the one who benefited. Bai Lan was now extremely eager to experience the incredible abilities she'd gain with an even greater comprehension boost. Regeneration acquired. Chapter 26. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Time is relentless. 2 months vanished in a flash. Since acquiring the ability to regenerate flesh from a particularly nasty demon, Bai Lan has been relentlessly hunting them down. It was one hunt after another. In those 2 months, Bai Lan had pretty much wiped out all the demons in his assigned area. With no demons left, Bai Lan naturally wasn't going to stick around. He had the crow accept missions in other regions and began moving towards new hunting grounds. Over the past 2 months, Bai Lan's luck seemed to have run dry after that tough fight with San Yi. Almost all the demons he faced were just small fry, and most didn't even possess decent blood demon art. In fact, Bai Lan couldn't even gather enough comprehension points for a 100-fold increase, which often left him frustrated. At this rate, how would he ever gain the ability to travel between worlds? Host: Bai Lan. Abilities: water breathing, sun breathing, space perception, so far away, derived from flesh and blood comprehension. Points: 890. Staring at his simple attribute panel, Bai Lan's brow furrowed. Alright, since this area's crawling with these weaklings, I guess it's time to head to Nadian Spider Mountain in Yugua. The demons there are among the most powerful. Bai Lan knew that Xia Xian Wulei's territory was Nadian Spider Mountain, and that Xia Xian Lu's brother, the pimp Futaro, was hanging around Yoshihara. But Bai Lan wasn't going to chase them down immediately. As long as there were demons to hunt in his area, there was no need to go out of his way to find them. He'd wait until all the demons in his area were taken care of before going after them. After all, even the smallest gains were worth it. The siblings Wulei and Futaro weren't going anywhere. That was Bai Lan's plan. Now that he'd cleared out his assigned areas, there was no reason to stay. After getting intel on those 2 locations from the Demon Slayer headquarters via the Crow, Bai Lan began transferring his area of responsibility. It was also time to deal with the Wulei and Futaro siblings. Killing Wulei wouldn't be a huge deal, but taking out the Futaro siblings might provoke Muzan to send upper-ranked demons after him. If that happened, that would be fantastic. After battling those 3 guys from Bei Ming Yuxing Ming, Bai Lan's combat skills had improved even further. And over the past 2 months, Bai Lan's mastery of sun breathing had also grown by leaps and bounds. Now Bai Lan feared no demons except Muzan himself. Even the upper-rank one, Kokoshibo, Bai Lan felt confident he could handle, even if he couldn't kill him. He was sure he could hold his own. As for killing Muzan, while Bai Lan was confident in his strength, he wasn't that arrogant. He wasn't strong enough to take down Muzan yet. Of course, he wouldn't mind going head-to-head with Muzan. After all, he now possessed the ability to regenerate flesh and blood, allowing him to recover quickly from injuries. However, Bai Lan didn't want to seek out Muzan right now. What was the point? It's not as if Bai Lan had nothing better to do, even knowing Muzan was in Tokyo. Bai Lan didn't want to go there. If he went, it would be to see Tamayo. After all, Tamayo was a beautiful woman. Bai Lan wasn't repulsed by Tamayo. While Tamayo had eaten people, it was during her berserk periods when she couldn't control herself. She'd never intentionally eaten anyone. Besides, Tamayo ate people from this country. Why would Bai Lan care? Upon arriving in the new area, Bai Lan immediately had the crow relay mission instructions and lead the way to begin a new round of hunting. This time, the demons didn't disappoint Bai Lan. He found a demon with decent blood demon art and good strength that granted Bai Lan over 100 points. Bai Lan had once again gathered the comprehension points needed for a 100-fold increase, exactly 1,000. Then, Bai Lan pressed on, heading non-stop towards his next destination. Maybe it was because the previous Demon Slayer members in charge of this area were too weak. They knew there were demons around, but couldn't find any trace of them. Many demons hadn't been eliminated. Then again, most Demon Slayer Corps members weren't that strong, only a few stood out. Perhaps the god of luck had finally smiled on Bai Lan. That evening, he rushed to 3 locations and killed 4 demons. Each demon gave Bai Lan triple-digit comprehension points, and Bai Lan's total reached 1,500. However, despite exceeding 1,000 comprehension points, Bai Lan didn't use them. Although the demons this time all had blood demon art, none of them were the type Bai Lan wanted. Besides, Bai Lan had decided to save comprehension points and further enhance his So Far Away ability. So Far Away was the ability gained from a 100-fold increase in understanding. To continue understanding, he'd need a 1,000-fold increase, costing 10,000 points. Bai Lan didn't have enough yet. After hunting all night, Bai Lan, having slain the last demon just before dawn, was exhausted and headed for the nearest town. By the time he arrived, the sun was high in the sky. Bai Lan found a small restaurant and started refueling, but halfway through his meal, Bai Lan paused. Is this guy's hometown? Looking at the smiling girl with cherry blossom hair, Bai Lan blinked and muttered to himself. Sure enough, the person in Bai Lan's sight was none other than the future love Hashira, Kanroji Mitsuri. However, she hadn't joined the Demon Slayer Corps yet. Judging by her attire, she seemed to be here for a blind date. Sure enough, under Bai Lan's gaze, Kanroji Mitsuri slowly walked to a table where a man was already waiting. Seeing this, Bai Lan suddenly got interested and started watching the drama unfold. Chapter 27. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mitsuri Kanroji, not yet the love pillar she's destined to be, reluctantly agreed to a blind date at her family's insistence. At 15, Mitsuri was of marriageable age for the time, so her family felt the pressure. But Mitsuri's striking pink hair and unusual strength scared off many potential suitors. One of her dates even said outright that she was too strong to marry, and they certainly didn't want to pass on that weird pink hair. Just as Bai Lan was pondering Mitsuri's predicament, the date predictably fell apart. The guy got up and left after barely exchanging a few words. Mitsuri was left sitting alone, looking lost. On seeing this, Bai Lan had an idea. He got up and walked over, taking a seat across from her. Heartbroken from the failed date, Mitsuri noticed someone approaching and looked up. Seeing Bai Lan's youthful but undeniably handsome face, she couldn't help but blush. Hello, what's up? She asked, her cheeks flushed. Even though Bai Lan looked younger, he was definitely cute, and Mitsuri was a sucker for a cute boy. She just couldn't help it. So, Bai Lan said with a grin, propping his cheek with his hand, "You're here on a blind date." Mitsuri's face froze. She ducked her head, flustered. He'd hit a nerve. What was she going to do? Bai Lan didn't miss a beat. Want to ditch this whole scene and hang out with me instead? Huh? Mitsuri gasped, looking up at him in disbelief. I'm saying, wanna go on a date with me? Bai Lan clarified. Seeing her confusion, Mitsuri was completely thrown. She couldn't keep up with Bai Lan's sudden moves. Bai Lan found her reaction adorable. He'd always had a soft spot for Mitsuri, even before ending up in this world. Seeing her so flustered just made him like her even more. He felt a strong urge to tease her, and that's exactly what it felt like. Bai Lan was totally teasing Mitsuri, watching her become increasingly flustered, like a chicken with its head cut off. Bai Lan smiled. He took her hand and led her out. He stopped by the counter to pay the bill on the way. Hey, Mitsuri said, after Bai Lan had pulled her out onto the street, finally regaining some composure. What's your name? Bai Lan, he said, turning to face her with a grin, your future husband. Boom. Mitsuri's head felt like it had exploded. Steam practically poured from her ears. Bai Lan stared, stunned. Did people actually do that in real life? A real-life steam princess? Mitsuri quickly snapped out of it, glaring at Bai Lan. Don't tease me. I'm not kidding. I'm seriously asking if you want to go on a date with me. And if the date goes well, wouldn't that make me your future husband? Bai Lan replied with a smile. This had been a spur-of-the-moment decision. Bai Lan truly liked Mitsuri. He'd liked her before ending up here, and he still liked her, and if he liked her, why not go for it? Before, she'd been a two-dimensional dream girl, but now he had a chance to make her his wife for real. He couldn't pass that up, so, Bai Lan had decided on the spot, he was going to win Mitsuri over. Wait, are you serious? After confirming that Bai Lan was being serious, Mitsuri was no longer shy and asked him seriously. Yep, I'm serious. Bai Lan's expression mirrored hers, his smile earnest. Wow, someone finally wants me. After receiving Bai Lan's affirmation, Ganluji Mili was stunned for a moment, and then jumped up excitedly. The next moment, Bai Lan felt a blackness in front of her. Why is it so dark? The darkness in front of her eyes made Bai Lan a little confused. However, Bai Lan soon reacted. She seemed to be hugged by Kenroji Mitsuri, but the next moment, Kenroji Mitsuri's scream came over. Bai Lan's eyes also regained light again. What's wrong? Bai Lan, who regained her sight, immediately asked. However, after seeing Kenroji Mitsuri looking at her shyly, Bai Lan blinked in hindsight. The face of Kenroji Mitsuri opposite even redder. Now, even if Bai Lan is a fool, he knows what happened just now. Boom. After seeing Bai Lan's behavior, Kenroji Mitsuri was so shy that she almost fainted. However, even if she didn't faint, Kenroji Mitsuri also almost fell to the ground. Fortunately, Bai Lan reacted in time, dodged over in an instant, and hugged her, which prevented Kenroji Mitsuri from collapsing directly on the street. Chapter 28. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Here. Sitting on a stool in front of the little tea shop, Bai Lan gently offered Mitsuri Kenroji a skewer of meatballs. Thanks. Mitsuri took them, her cheeks still flushed, though she seemed less flustered than before. Sorry, I wasn't thinking straight back there. Bai Lan sat down, scratching his head, a little embarrassed. He really hadn't processed what was happening in the moment. Reacting was just instinct, no thought involved. Hearing Bai Lan bring it up again made Mitsuri blush even harder, but she wasn't upset. No, it's okay. I got a little too excited, and that's what caused it. Mitsuri shook her head, face burning, and insisted it was fine. If she hadn't jumped up and hugged Bai Lan in the first place, none of it would have happened. So, Bai Lan, you really want to go out with me? Having dismissed the incident, Mitsuri asked anxiously. Yeah. What about you? You like me? Bai Lan took a bite of a meatball, then looked at her, nodding with a smile. Like you? Bai Lan, you're so handsome, of course I. Bai Lan's words made Mitsuri light up, but her voice trailed off as she realized she was getting ahead of herself. Seeing her reaction, Bai Lan knew he'd sealed the deal. After a moment's hesitation, Bai Lan reached out and took Mitsuri's hand. This time, holding hands felt different, more significant. Mitsuri trembled slightly when he touched her, but she didn't pull away. Instead, she squeezed his hand, her face bright red, and said softly, Please be patient with me, Bai Lan. You too, please be patient with me. This was a blind date, so there was no need for formal introductions or family interference. They liked each other, seemed compatible, and that was enough. Now they just needed to take things slow and get to know each other. No need to make it complicated. With those words, their relationship was officially underway. They started talking, naturally, about their backgrounds. Mitsuri told Bai Lan about her family, and Bai Lan shared his own story. Wow, I've heard rumors about an organization that hunts demons, but I didn't realize it was real. And you're actually one of them? Is that the Demon Slayer uniform? Hearing about Bai Lan's life, Mitsuri was thrilled, her eyes darting over his uniform. Yeah. Mitsuri, you'd actually be great as a demon slayer. Want to fight demons with me? Walking down the street, Bai Lan extended an invitation. Even though they were together now, Bai Lan wouldn't pressure her to become a demon slayer. If she wanted to join, great. If not, he wouldn't force her. Really? I could. Mitsuri was clearly interested. She didn't reject the idea, but she seemed unsure of herself. Absolutely. In fact, your strength makes you perfect for it. Have you forgotten how strong you are? Bai Lan chuckled. Heh heh. Hearing Bai Lan mention her strength, Mitsuri wasn't embarrassed this time. Instead, she felt happy. They'd already arm wrestled, and Bai Lan had easily won. Knowing he was stronger than her meant she didn't have to worry about him being put off by her strength, like the other guys she'd met on blind dates. Hearing Bai Lan point out the advantages of her strength made her even happier. Now that she knew Byakuran was a demon hunter, her heart desired to become a demon hunter like Byakuran and hunt together in the future. The evil ghost's thoughts are just that he is worried that he does not have such talent. Now that Byakuran says that he can become a ghost hunter, how could Kanroji Mitsuri be unhappy? Bai Lan, how do I become a demon slayer? Mitsuri asked eagerly. So eager, huh? Maybe you should talk to your family first. Bai Lan was a little surprised and reminded her. No, I don't want to worry them. Mitsuri shook her head, refusing. Bai Lan was silent for a moment, then nodded. Not everyone had the same family situation as him. Mitsuri didn't want her family to worry about her safety. I'll just tell them I'm going to work with you, so don't worry. Mitsuri said with a smile. Okay. Bai Lan nodded. But before that, I'd really like you to meet my family. I'll tell them I'm going to work with you. Mitsuri gently took Bai Lan's arm, her voice soft, pleading. Alright, sure. Let's go meet them now. Bai Lan couldn't refuse, so he agreed with a smile. Yay! Mitsuri jumped up, excited. She grabbed Bai Lan's hand and started running in a specific direction. It didn't take a genius to figure out that was the way to her house. Soon, they arrived at a small house. Mitsuri opened the door and pulled Bai Lan inside. Mom, Dad, I'm home. Chapter 29. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Kanroji Mitsuri's family was incredibly warm. Maybe it was because of Mitsuri's unique situation, but even though I looked younger than her, they welcomed me with open arms, treating me like a son-in-law. They couldn't have been more enthusiastic. If I were older, they probably would have pushed for a wedding right then and there. Meeting her parents was a completely new experience for me, and for a moment, I panicked, but with Mitsuri's encouragement, I calmed down and managed to talk to her family normally. Perhaps because they were so eager for Mitsuri to find someone, they didn't want to let me go. Even when Mitsuri suggested we leave and travel together, they were sad to see her go but ultimately agreed, asking her to visit often. The next morning, Mitsuri said goodbye to her family, and we set off. This is the first time I've ever left town. Mitsuri exclaimed, holding my arm tightly as her eyes darted around, taking in the fields we passed. You'll be seeing a lot more of the world from now on, so don't complain when you get tired, I said with a smile. Don't worry, I won't. Mitsuri replied confidently, pulling up her sleeve to reveal her pale arm. Good, because I'm going to start your training as soon as we arrive. Given your potential, you should pick up the breathing techniques quickly. Then I'll take you hunting demons with me, I said, patting her head. Okay. Mitsuri nodded excitedly. Originally, I had planned to clear out all the demons in this area and then take on the spider family at Natagumo Mountain, but now, I decided to return to Sajiri Mountain, using Urokadaki Sakanji's training mechanisms to help Mitsuri improve. I had already sent a message to Urokadaki about our arrival. We would hunt demons along the way to Sajiri Mountain, and I'd use the time to teach Mitsuri everything I knew about combat. She was a dedicated student, remembering everything I told her. And even if she didn't, she wrote it down in her notebook. So, we hunted demons and trained as we made our way to Sajiri Mountain. After 10 days, we finally arrived. Even though I knew you were coming, it's still a surprise. I never imagined you'd want to become a trainer, Urokodaki said emotionally when he saw us at the foot of Sajiri Mountain. Urokodaki-sensei, allow me to introduce my fiancée, Mitsuri Kenroji. I took Mitsuri's hand and smiled at Urokodaki. It's a pleasure to meet you, Urokodaki-sensei. I'm Mitsuri Kenroji, and I'm Bai Lan's fiancée, Mitsuri said, bowing slightly with a blush. Urokodaki was stunned. He clearly hadn't expected our relationship to be so serious. Are you sure about this? Urokodaki asked, his tone complicated. I knew what he meant. He didn't want loved ones joining the Demon Slayer Corps. I smiled faintly, a hint of mystery in my expression. Urokodaki-sensei, don't underestimate Mitsuri. She has a lot of talent. Urokodaki-sensei, I promise to work hard and become a strong demon slayer. Mitsuri added, clenching her fists. Well, I hope you won't regret it, Urokodaki said, nodding. Since you want to use Mount Sajiri to train your fiancé, you can use this cabin, and I'll keep you supplied. Knowing our relationship, Urokodaki didn't want to intrude. Thank you, Urokodaki-sensei. I smiled faintly, a bit surprised but grateful. Mitsuri's cheeks flushed. Even though we had slept in the same room on our journey, she was still shy about Urokodaki pointing it out, and her heart raced. Urokodaki explained how the mechanisms on Sajiri Mountain worked and then left, leaving Mitsuri and me alone in the cabin. Mitsuri's cheeks were still rosy, making her look incredibly cute. I pulled her into my arms. Even though I was younger, I was tall enough to hold her close. Mitsuri's face turned even redder. We had walked hand in hand during the day and slept in the same room at night, but we had never been this intimate. Let's start sleeping together tonight, Mitsuri, I whispered in her ear. Mitsuri knew what I meant. Her face flushed as she nodded softly, okay. Hearing her agreement, my heart pounded with excitement. Looking at her peach-colored cheeks, I felt an overwhelming urge and leaned in closer. Chapter 30. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This was a first for Bai Lan, even across 2 lifetimes. He had to fight the urge to just skip the training and head straight for home base, thanks to Mi Li's guidance back at Ganlu Temple. Even though Bai Lan was smaller than Kenroji Mitsuri, the sun-breathing techniques had fully developed every part of her body. She was ready. Even so, Bai Lan still had an amazing time the night before, stopping just short of going all the way. The next morning, after all the fun, Bai Lan took Kenroji Mitsuri to Sajiri Mountain. He originally wanted her to rest a day before starting training, but she insisted on starting immediately, so, Bai Lan had no choice but to begin her training at Sajiri Mountain. Kenroji Mitsuri had a really solid foundation, much better than Kamado Tanjiro's. During her first run through the traps, she stumbled a bit and got hit by some of the mechanisms, but the second time, she figured them all out. Bai Lan had to start making the mechanisms stronger. Even after he upgraded them, Kenroji Mitsuri adapted quickly. Each time the mechanisms were upgraded, she mastered them after only 1 try. In less than 10 days, she'd completely wrecked all the traps that Hinataki had left for Byakuren. Okay, Bai Lan, next up is the breathing technique. Kenroji Mitsuri said excitedly, standing in front of him. Alright, I'll guide you through it, Bai Lan said, nodding slightly, happy for her. She had mastered all the traps Hinataki set up. That meant her physical strength and reaction time were good enough. Next, she needed to learn the breathing technique and its swordsmanship. Only by mastering those could she become a qualified demon slayer. The next day, Bai Lan began teaching Kenroji Mitsuri the breathing technique. With her incredible talent, she mastered it in just 5 days. Of course, it was only a preliminary mastery. It would take time to practice to the point of full concentration and consistency. But judging by her progress, Bai Lan estimated it would only take her a month to reach that level. In the meantime, Bai Lan would bring her along on every mission, letting her experience what it was like to be a demon slayer. To his surprise, Kenroji Mitsuri wasn't bothered by the sight of hunting demons. She didn't react at all. It was like she was watching chickens and ducks being slaughtered. Bai Lan realized she was a natural-born warrior, just like him. On the 10th day after Kenroji Mitsuri mastered the breathing technique, she made a request to Bai Lan. Hey, Bai Lan, if the demon tonight isn't too strong, can you let me handle it? You want to start hunting demons now? Bai Lan was a little surprised. Yeah, I'm sure I can face and kill demons now, so I want to try. Gotta take that first step, right? Kanroji Mitsuri nodded eagerly, sounding excited. Okay, if the demon we encounter tonight isn't strong, I'll let you take care of it. Bai Lan wasn't going to refuse her, he was already powerful before meeting her. A month had passed, and he was even stronger now. Bai Lan was sure he could keep everything under control and didn't worry about her being in danger. Even if there was danger, he could step in. After all, he had skills that could reach far, combined with spatial perception. He could instantly move freely within a 10,000-meter radius. Thanks. She stamped a kiss on his lips and walked away shyly. That nymph is going to eat me alive one of these days. Bai Lan touched his lips, savoring the moment, and laughed. Kanroji Mitsuri, who hadn't gone far, heard him talking to himself, and her steps quickened, her cheeks growing redder, but her eyes revealed that she was looking forward to what Bai Lan said, even more than he was. Once a woman gets lustful, men don't stand a chance. Soon, Bai Lan followed her, took her hand, and they walked side by side toward their mission. Before nightfall, they arrived at a small town. Bai Lan immediately sensed the demon's location through spatial perception, but he didn't rush over. Instead, he took her to a restaurant and had a delicious meal, letting her recharge, but looking at her, he could tell she was eager to go find the demon. Seeing this, Bai Lan had no choice but to leave the hotel with her and start looking for traces of the demon. Since she was going to take action this time, he would let her find it. Bai Lan didn't forget to teach her how to look for signs of demons, just as he had been guiding her to become stronger. As soon as they left the hotel, Kanroji Mitsuri followed his instructions and began searching. The demons targeted in this mission were not powerful, and their hiding abilities were not very good. After searching for half an hour, Kanroji Mitsuri successfully found the demon. It was lurking on the roof of a house, ready to attack someone walking down the corridor. The sight of Bai Lan and her clothes immediately caught the demon's attention. Seeing the demon slayer corps uniforms on them, the demon's eyes lit up, and it abandoned its target and rushed towards them. Bai Lan and her immediately led the demon away.